Hello and welcome to Only in Illinois, your weekly video recap from Reboot Illinois. I'm Madeline Dubeck here with Matt Dietrich, and this week we thought we would talk about the budget stalemate in terms of the misperceptions and misinformation that is being spread out there. And the governor indulged in a little bit of that yesterday, right, Matt?
Right. Well, this happened actually last week. It happened in Urbana on the campus of the University of Illinois. It was afterwards when some reporters caught up with him and the governor was talking about his agenda and what's happening with the budget and university funding, etc. And he made a statement about the way the budget should be coming together and why there isn't a state budget now. And here's what he said.
They've authorized spending $5 billion more than our current revenue can support, and they have a constitutional duty to pass a balanced budget, and only they can pass a budget. It's supposed to be constitutionally required to be balanced.
Okay, there is some truth in what the governor said. There's also a lot of cloudiness in what the governor said, and I think it's worth everybody who is in Illinois right now who's concerned about this, you need to know what the Constitution actually says about having a balanced budget. And it does not say that the General Assembly is supposed to draft a balanced budget and then hand it to the governor for the governor's approval. What it says is that the governor is supposed to draft a budget and then the General Assembly is supposed to then enact the budget. What it means is this is a cooperative process between the executive branch and the General Assembly, the legislative branch. It's cooperation between the one person who all of the voters in Illinois elect, which is the governor, and also a collaboration between your local legislators and the General Assembly. That's the way it's supposed to work. So when you hear Governor Rauner say, well, they handed me a budget that's whatever the figure, he's using $5 billion now. So he says it's a budget that's $5 billion out of balance.
Right.
They handed that to me. It's clearly unconstitutional, so I vetoed it. That's not exactly the way the Constitution has things working. The other thing, too, that I think people need to keep in mind is that the governor had his own version of a budget that he came out with back in February when he gave his budget address.
Which also wasn't balanced.
That was not balanced either. The only reason that it could look balanced by the way he presented it was because he used $2.2 billion in savings from his pension plan that was never presented to the General Assembly, and that would have required changing the state constitution in order to go into effect. He was going to spend $2.2 billion from that plan this very year in this year's budget. That's not what I call a balanced budget either. So I think there's a lot on both sides.
Right.
And I think that's why we've said over and over again, really, there needs to be some cooperation here.
Well, it's the old, if you remember from your grade school or high school civics class, checks and balances.
Right.
And so the governor, the executive, and the lawmakers, the legislative body, are supposed to come to an agreement on this. And we're clearly not having that.
Now, there's also, now that's Governor Rauner talking about him, but Speaker Madigan is very much involved in this, and he's been talking, all summer long he was having these weekly press conferences, and he's said plenty as well.
And he took off after the governor, after a speech to a business group this week, in tones that escalate the situation. But he's talked all summer long about how inappropriate and wrong it is for the governor to be bringing up items that are not budget related before he will deal with the budget. And we know that that's a bit of a misperception and misinformation, because over the course of many years that we've been watching Illinois politics and government, Speaker Madigan has cut end of session deals that are commonly referred to in the press corps as Christmas tree bills.
Oh, sure, yeah. Because
they're loaded with goodies for all kinds of people, and they aren't necessarily all budget related all the time. And so there's a long history of things being included in the end of session budget agreement that don't specifically have to do with dollars and cents. There's things like building U.S. Cellular Field and setting up the McPier Authority,
Right.
the Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority that runs Navy Pier and McCormick Place, all kinds of things like that that are not purely budgetary.
Right. And so there's plenty of room for, you know, it's kind of disingenuous to say, well, Governor Rauner, there are these budget issues, we don't discuss anything else. The other thing that has consistently bothered me, and it's bothered me more and more as this has gone on, but it seems like there's a sort of a theme running through here that, well, we're arguing over the budget now, but once we get a budget, everything will be fine, the universities will be funded, and all of these social service programs will get their money. We'll have plenty of money for all of the subsidized daycare that parents are losing out on now. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that when they finally get down to talking about the budget, we're going to see the reality of the bad situation in Illinois. $2 billion in cuts, minimum, is what they're going to have to do. But there's another
Right.
calculation on top of that as well, I think.
Well, there's $2 billion in cuts, and as you point out, you know, I think most of us are going through our daily routines every day and not thinking that this affects us in any way. And even if you're not one of those children who are suffering because you can't get into a child care program anymore, or your mom can't work anymore because she can't find daycare she can afford for you, it is going to affect all of us because we'll feel those cuts that you just mentioned. But the comptroller has said we're going to start the new year with at least $8.5 billion in bills that need to be paid. And so divided up amongst the taxpayers in Illinois, that amounts to at least $3,100 in additional taxes for every taxpayer in the state of Illinois. So whether you support Governor Rauner or you support Speaker Madigan and the Democrats, it's going to cost you. We're talking about a combination of cuts and revenue increases that will cause pain for all of us.
And we know that because this is money that's already spent. They could have planned, if they had done a budget and done cuts in advance, then maybe this
Right.
money wouldn't have been spent, but it's being spent at a rate from last year that revenue is not matching, where the Department of Revenue reported that we're $1 billion down now this year,
Right.
thanks to the new
Right.
low tax rate.
Because of the lower tax rate. And so every day that this stalemate continues, we dig ourselves deeper in the hole, and we're going to all have to dig deeper into our pockets.
Right.
So, as we've been saying all along, it's important that all of us speak up and put pressure on individual state reps and state senators, who then hopefully will also put some pressure on their leadership. And you can put some pressure on the leadership as well by using our sound off tool, message from a concerned constituent. Write your own email, and it will go to the top 5 leaders, the governor, Speaker of the House and Senate, and your individual state rep and state senator, all in one click of a mouse. That's our sound off tool. You can find it on the upper right tab area of our homepage at rebootillinois.com. That's it for this week's edition. Thanks for watching Only in Illinois.